This is Net Video. I'm Jason Romney on the Gold Coast at the Screen Producers Association of Australia annual conference. And we're joined now by Robert Connolly, one of Australia's best known and most successful filmmakers. Robert, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here, Jason.
Robert, for the sake of our international audience, could you give us a brief history of your filmmaking career, please?
I'm a partner in a company called Arena Film, and we're essentially a feature film production company. The company's made films over 20 years in Australia, just feature films. Jane Campion's film Sweetie, Vincent Ward's film Navigator, they predate me joining the company. And since I've been there, I've made a film with director Rowan Woods called The Boys, and I directed 2 feature films, The Bank and $3. And we're currently looking towards, financing the next films. Essentially, we kind of alternate projects every couple of years. I produce one, I direct one, on and off.
In an era when there's a general move by the film industry towards populism and superficiality, your films have real backbone and sort of spiritual fibre. Can you describe the sorts of challenges you've faced in being able to make films like that in the current environment?
Look, I wonder if at the moment any film is hard to finance. I certainly have found all of the films we've made incredibly difficult to finance. We're just doing a box set of the DVDs of The Boys, The Bank and $3 as this kind of political trilogy, if you like. And each one had their own monumental hurdles to overcome. The Boys suffered from a perception that it didn't take a moral point of view, and because it deals with 3 brothers' kind of brutal murder of a woman, it really seemed to frustrate, particularly some of the funding bodies. I think the Film and Television Office said that their assessment said the filmmakers behind this film are morally reprehensible for trying to put scum like this on the screen. And then the bank, interestingly, probably of the 3 of them, was the easiest to fund because it was like on the surface a genre thriller. So it kind of sugar-coated its political ambition. Whereas $3 doesn't do that. $3 literally is a very clear look at the kind of social and economic kind of impacts of economic rationalism on Australia. That is kind of considered to be quite a dry area, despite the huge human dimension in the film. That took a lot of convincing.
The new system of the FFC has individuals now assessing scripts and making judgments.
Look, I think it's been a great step forward. And the FFC's handed out about $1 billion over the last 15 years. And for me it seems crazy that after handing out $1 billion over 15 years, they only now are starting to talk about assessing the creative value of the projects. I think you can't escape from the fact that if you're assessing all of the reasons why you'd make a film, that a creative judgment is required at some point. Whether that's assessing the creative team that's been put together, the screenplay, the director's vision for the project. I think you have to consider these things, and the fact that the FFC's employed skilled people to do that is a really healthy step in the right direction. It's tough because the most effective form of creative analysis, I feel, is kind of peer assessment. But peer assessment's kind of has its own problems, because of the competitive nature of our business. So currently they've drawn, Tate Brady from distribution. So he brings his skill as a distributor to bear on the creative judgments he makes. I guess in some way to try and bridge the divide between, making something that's creatively strong and actually having some awareness of the marketability of it.
With the crash in the career of people like Steve Vizard or Rodney Adler, the great icons of business are continuing to fall, which puts a spotlight on the nature of integrity in Australian life. Your films look at that. Can you describe what interests you about that theme and how that's continuing to express itself in your work?
The films I've made have toughened up politically. I guess The Boys is the toughest of the films, but the political ambition of it was less clear. I remember when I was working on The Bank, my business partner John Maynard gave me the work of John Ralston Saul, the Unconscious Civilization, the various books he'd done about globalization, and he was trying to prod me into toughening up the kind of analysis of ethics in the corporate world that film is. And then subsequently, I guess with $3, it's actually looking at the more personal side of that. The bank has that kind of high-end genre thriller, wealthy, that's not your own life, but you can observe it with some, entertainment. Whereas $3 cuts more to the chase, I think, of contemporary life. Now, the bigger picture for me, in terms of what you're talking about, is placing a character in contemporary life in a situation where he is tested by the world, ethically, morally, economically. I mean, it feels to me that at this point in history we are asked more than ever, particularly by the current government, to turn a blind eye to things that morally and ethically would have previously bothered us, or we might have had a very strong position on. But this current environment asks us just to turn a blind eye to them and come with us on this direction, and there'll be economic prosperity. You'll be safe. I mean, what did John Howard say? He wanted Australians, his ambition for Australians was that they should be relaxed and comfortable. I just think that is just, offensive to a complex, rich, first world country, like Australia. We have to have an ambition beyond ourselves. We have to take on responsibilities for other things that face the world. And John Howard's been very good at asking Australians to turn a blind eye to those issues. Don't worry that we can't lock up refugees. Don't worry, because it's keeping those people out of the country that might take your job. So, the films I've made have placed individuals in situations where they're tested. And I guess $3 is the clearest of those, because it takes this guy, Eddie Harnavy, and it tests him as a father, it tests him as a husband, infidelity issues, it tests him economically, it tests him at work in terms of the dilemmas he faces there. The world literally throws everything it can at him to try and break him.
Your films up to now have had an individual pitted against economic forces. In the world, though, today we see poignant examples of ideological conflict, such as the rise of Islam and the way that's being expressed in terrorist action. Are you disposed now to perhaps move into those other areas, or do you feel that that personal situation that you've explored up to now is a good continuing source?
It's interesting because, I guess $3 very consciously, in the entire film there is no mention of a god or a spiritual dimension or a religious dimension to it. It's not... Eddie Harnavy, Elliot Perlman as the author, perhaps there was some perception when he was writing it that the character could be Jewish, but it's not articulated in the book, nor is it in the film. And so we steered away from that, almost as if consciously, religion plays no part in this family. But interestingly, along the lines of what you're talking about, I have been working on an adaptation of Zola's 1800s novel, Therese Raquin, set in a contemporary kind of Asian city post some military action that's happened there, and it's about the rise of a very strong kind of ideology that is driving, moral kind of repressive ideology that's driving the world. It's kind of a semi-science fiction type dangerous look at religion. I don't know whether it's got any legs, but it's something I've been working on for a few years.
We've heard quite a lot at the SPA conference so far about new ways of distributing films and how filmmakers may be able to cut out intermediaries and reach audiences that have particular rapport with the kind of films they're making, which might be audiences of a certain political persuasion or discerning in various ways. And I'm not saying that your films don't have a very wide appeal, but do you feel that you've encountered here ideas of any value about new and better ways to distribute the kind of content that you create?
Well, I also have a distribution company, Footprint Films, and we distribute films in Australia. And my business partner and I have been talking increasingly about finding new ways of, combining the release of the film with other technologies. I know Baz Luhrmann said something which has stayed with me, which is that he believes that you're experiencing a film long before you're in the cinema, and that you're experiencing it because of the poster and the trailer and the music you hear on the radio and postcards you might see or the ads in the paper. And he said that once you start thinking like that you no longer can think of those things as a marketing device. They are part of the experience of the film. And more broadly, John Maynard and I have started talking about, well, if you think like that, in terms of all of the new ways of exploring, storytelling with new technology, then perhaps the experience of a feature film should be much broader than just sitting in a cinema for 100 minutes watching it. And that there's no reason why simultaneously with releasing a film at the cinema you couldn't be releasing it in all other forms, but not necessarily the same film. A different edited version, maybe a miniseries for TV, an educational version, maybe some form of narrative content that is sent to a mobile phone, engaging with audiences that are willing to download elements off the internet. We're talking with one film, maybe a subplot in the story won't be in the film, but it'll be downloadable. I'm yet to see anyone propose a way of using all of the new technology, the innovation of it in a cohesive way. Like, I hear people talk about using new technology to help advertise Coca-Cola. So you can build content that can get sent to mobile phones to help advertise Coca-Cola, or I'm yet to see, and I've seen great innovation in documentary makers who are actually engaging with their audiences using the internet and in all sorts of fantastically interesting ways. But yeah, I'm yet to see it in terms of the business side, the side of the business that I work in.
Have you been experimenting with HD TV and areas like that?
Just as the thing about HD TV, at the moment for feature filmmakers, it's just considered like a delivery format. The concept beyond that, it hasn't been explored. And I guess television will do that first. Television drama, you would think, would do that first before feature films. Feature films are still stuck in the mud a bit about, traditional exhibition in a theatrical environment. But having said that, though, I think of a film like The Bank, and 250, maybe 300,000 people paid to see that at the cinema, and 1.2 million people watched it on pay TV. 1 million people rented it on video and DVD, and 1.5 million people watched it on Channel 9. So in the life of that film, really, if you think 4 million Australians saw that, 20% of the population saw that, and only 300,000 of them saw it at the cinema. We have to embrace, the possibilities of those ancillary formats, not necessarily being the ancillary formats. Theatrical is becoming, I guess, like an advertising campaign for the ancillary markets. Filmmakers have had great take-up of DVD. That's been the big breakthrough in terms of what you can use DVDs for. And we've always spent a huge amount of time and effort to make our DVDs of optimum quality with all sorts of additional features exploring the film. But certainly I think feature filmmakers will lag behind without a doubt. My feeling is that the pioneering dimension of it should probably come from television.
Are you selling your DVDs direct from a website?
We use a company, Madman, and the AV channel in Melbourne, and we've had a great relationship with them. Personally, I think that our industry faces a major crisis in terms of economic streams to the producer of the product and to the creative participants. You think of Elliot Perlman's novel $3. Every time that book sells anywhere in the world, he gets 10% of the gross as the creator of it. You think of the music industry and the way that musicians derive income from publishing. And you look at feature filmmaking, and the film can make $100 million, and the creative team that made it will not have seen a cent. And so in Australia, in exhibition, on average, the exhibitor takes 70% of the ticket price. The remaining 30% is then divided up with the distributor, who covers their costs and their commissions. You look at video and DVD, and Video Easy, Blockbuster buy the DVD for $29.95 or $21.95, and can rent it at $7 a night for the first month as many times as they want, and $2 a week out and forever, and never pay any more than the $20 they bought it for. And in the era of the computers that Video Easy use to show what rents, I would rather give them the DVD for free on the basis that every time it rents, I get 10% of it. You look at pay TV, where you paid a straight license fee that has no relationship with the potential audience that the film will get there. It feels to me that every element of our business is designed to keep income away from the people that have created it and produced it, which is why we have a distribution company to try and get further up the food chain. And I do understand from travelling overseas that Australia, in terms of exhibition splits, is one of the worst in the world. So I think there's great work to be done in trying to, if we want to have a viable business here, in trying to carve out a bigger chunk for the people that create the work.
The idea of a industry representative body, the Australian Screen Council, has been raised at SPA. What is your thought on that?
Oh, I think it's a terrific initiative. I think we have to do something. I think that the idea of an organisation that joins writers, directors, producers, actors, new media producers, across the various areas of our industry, and that all of those parties have to put their own vested interests aside for the greater good of the industry. I think the only way you can do that is to have a representative body like this. It's my experience, for example, the MEAA represent actors, that they are an organisation that has increasingly acted with self-interest for their members, and they failed, to engage with the bigger issues facing the industry. Now, that's not to say that MEA might not have a great contribution to make for the greater good of our industry, but individually as an organisation, they're hopeless. I think that's just one example of where a representative body would serve our industry, better. It was interesting. I was, Senator Rod Kemp. He looks after, it's one of the only countries in the world where he covers sport and the arts, in one portfolio. And he said that, in the sporting industry, when they come to Canberra, they always bring a Cathy Freeman with them or an Ian Thorpe, where they're very good at using politically their sports people. And the Australian film industry has been pretty hopeless at using actors in the same way. And largely that's come because of an antagonistic relationship between SPA and MEA, which is detrimental to our industry. But ultimately, the disagreements are because of the specific detail of the self-interest of producers and the self-interest of actors. An umbrella organisation that can say, okay, guys, you go and fight that out till the cows come home, but we actually have some bigger issues the industry has to solve, and let's all come to the table on those issues. And I think it's a great initiative.
Robert Connolly, good luck with your future films, and thank you very much for coming on Net Video today.
No problems.